All right, let's talk about a place that's, well, it's basically mythical for wine lovers. I'm talking about Burgundy, right in the heart of France. And look, this isn't just some spot on a map. It's where history, culture, and the land itself just come together to create some of the most famous, most wanted wines on the entire planet.
So that begs the question, right? How on earth did this pretty small region in France get so legendary? What's the secret? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. Let's uncork the story of Burgundy together. And you might think the answer is, the grapes. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. The real magic in Burgundy, it's literally in the ground. It all boils down to two really important French words you've got to know: terroir and climat. Okay, first up, terroir. You've probably heard this word thrown around, right? But in Burgundy, it's not just a buzzword, it's practically a religion. The easiest way to think about it is like a wine's fingerprint. It's this one-of-a-kind mix of everything: the sun, the soil, the way the land slopes, and yeah, the human element too, that gives a wine its unique identity. And there's really no place where this is more true than Burgundy, all thanks to these ancient fault lines that created this incredibly complicated patchwork of different soils. And if you think that's specific, hold on. Burgundy takes this idea and zooms in, like to a microscopic level. That's where we get the concept of climats. We're talking about tiny, super precisely defined plots of land. Sometimes it's just a couple of rows of vines, but each one has its own name, its own identity. This system is so important, so central to the culture here, that it's actually a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site. Yeah, it's that serious. A really great way to picture this is to think of Burgundy as a giant, intricate mosaic. Each one of those climas is a single, unique tile in that mosaic. It has its own history, its own personality, and when you put all those little tiles together, you get the breathtakingly complex masterpiece that is Burgundy wine. So you gotta be asking, how did they figure all this out? I mean, this level of detail is insane. Well, it didn't happen overnight. We're talking about 2,000 years of work. The Romans actually got the ball rolling, but it was these Cistercian monks, starting way back in the 12th century, who became the true masters of this. They spent centuries just walking the vineyards, tasting the soil, tasting the grapes, and meticulously mapping every single plot. They basically created the system we still use today. Then, later on, you had these powerful dukes who made the wines famous in all the royal courts of Europe. And finally, after the French Revolution, the land got split up into these small, family-owned estates, or domains, that are the heart and soul of Burgundy today. Okay, so you have this incredibly specific, detailed terroir. You need the right kind of grapes to act as messengers, right? Grapes that are sensitive enough to actually show you what that piece of ground tastes like. In Burgundy, that huge responsibility falls to one undisputed king and one undisputed queen. So, let's meet the royals. The king is Pinot Noir. Now, this grape is famously difficult to grow, a real drama queen. But here, in its home turf, it creates these reds that are just so delicate and complex, full of red fruits, earthy notes, and spice. And then you have the queen, Chardonnay. In Burgundy, Chardonnay becomes this incredibly expressive, elegant wine. It can be anything from the super crisp, mineral-driven whites you find in Chablis to the rich, almost buttery styles from places like Meursault. They're just the perfect vessels for the soil to speak through the wine. And this is where it gets really cool. Because of this whole climate system, you can have a Pinot Noir from one vineyard that tastes completely different from another one grown literally right across a little stone wall. It's wild. So let's take a quick tour of the main areas to see exactly what I mean.
All right, our first stop is up north in the Côte d'Inuit. Make no mistake, this is the kingdom of Pinot Noir. The wines from here are powerful. They're structured. They're built to be cellared for decades. This is where you'll find some of the most legendary, and yeah, most expensive, red wines in the entire world, like Romani Conti. Okay, now let's head just a little bit south, and we're in the Côte de Beaune. And here, everything kind of flips on its head. This place is the global standard for Chardonnay. It produces these stunningly elegant, complex white wines from famous vineyards like Montrachet. Now, don't get me wrong, you still find amazing Pinot Noir here, but it tends to be a bit more delicate, maybe more refined than its neighbors to the north. Then we're going to jump way up to Chablis. This place is kind of its own little world, totally distinct from the rest of Burgundy. The secret weapon here, it's the soil. It's called Kimmeridgian limestone, and it's packed with these tiny fossilized oyster shells from an ancient sea. What that does is give the Chardonnay this electric, mineral-driven character. You hear people talk about whetstone, flint, even a salty taste. It is arguably the purest expression of Chardonnay you can find anywhere on the planet.
But look, to really get Burgundy, you have to understand that the wine isn't just a drink. It's not separate from the culture. It's completely woven into the fabric of everyday life. The food, the whole vibe, what the French call art de vivre, the art of living well. And you can literally taste this connection. Just think about the local food. Those classic, iconic dishes like boeuf bourguignon or coq au vin, they weren't just created to be eaten with the local red wine. They're literally cooked in it. From the garlicky escargots to that famously pungent époisses cheese, the food and wine here are just two sides of the same coin. They're inseparable. And that really brings us to the most important thing to remember from all of this. When you open a bottle of Burgundy, you're not just tasting a grape, like Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. You are tasting a specific little plot of land, a specific row of vines on a specific hill from a specific year. You're not just drinking the grape, you are drinking the place. So, that giant mosaic of vineyards we talked about, it's out there, waiting. Every single tile, every single climat has a different taste, a different story to tell. So really, the only question is, with a world of flavor this deep and this amazing, which piece of Burgundy are you going to discover first?